Have you ever been close to a man, deeply close, and still felt like you were standing outside a locked door? You share your body, your time, your heart, and for one brief moment, it feels like the distance is finally gone. Then the next day, or even the next hour, he pulls back, gets quiet, changes the energy, and leaves you wondering what just happened. If that confusion has ever made you question your value, stay with me, because this is where everything starts to make sense. What looks like mixed signals is often a hidden pattern. What feels personal is sometimes a response happening far below words. And once you understand that pattern, the whole game changes. Because with an avoidant man, intimacy does not always create closeness in the way most people expect. In fact, the very moment you think the bond is getting stronger may be the exact moment his inner defenses wake up. That is why so many women try harder, love harder, explain more, give more, and still feel him slipping through their fingers. But there is another way to see it, a clearer way, a way that helps you stop guessing and start understanding what he is really craving, but cannot say out loud. And trust me, the next part matters more than most people realize. Most women are trying to bond with avoidant men using the same approach that works with someone emotionally open. They pour their heart out. They become more tender. They hope vulnerability will melt the distance. They believe that if the physical connection is strong enough, the emotional wall will finally come down. But inside his system, something very different may be happening. While you are feeling softer, warmer, and more attached, he may be feeling flooded, pressured, or strangely disconnected from the moment that was supposed to bring you together. It is like two people stepping into the same room and breathing different air. You think the closeness is building a bridge. He may feel it creating exposure. You may walk away wanting more contact, more conversation, more reassurance. He may walk away needing silence, space, or distraction. That difference is what creates so much pain. Not because one person cares and the other does not, but because the bond is not forming in the same way at the same time. This is where so many women get hurt. They read intensity as intimacy. They read chemistry as safety. They read a powerful night as proof that emotional closeness will naturally follow. Then when he goes cold, they blame themselves. But stay with me, because this is not the whole story. There is a reason the usual path to bonding often misses him completely. And once you see it, his behavior starts to look less random and far more predictable. When an avoidant man is stressed, emotionally overloaded, or carrying old fear he never learned to name, his brain does not always receive closeness as comfort. Sometimes it receives closeness as risk. That is the piece most people miss. The same kind of tenderness that makes one person feel safe can make another person feel exposed. So while one person relaxes into connection, the other tightens against it without even meaning to. Think of trying to warm your hands near a fire, while someone else in the same room feels like the heat is too strong and wants to step back. Neither person is lying about what they feel. They are simply having different body experiences of the same moment. This is why cuddling, sweet talk, and emotional intensity after intimacy do not always land the way you expect. You may be trying to deepen the bond right when his system is trying to protect distance. And because most avoidant men do not explain this clearly, if they even understand it themselves, the woman is left translating silence with her own fears. She thinks, maybe I said too much, maybe I was too needy, maybe I was not enough. But very often it is not about not enough. It is about how his stress response interferes with bonding. It blocks the very softness you are trying to build. It interrupts the emotional meaning of the moment. And if you do not know that, you keep repeating the same pattern, hoping the next intimate moment will finally break through. But what if the breakthrough comes from changing the energy entirely? Here is where the confusion gets deeper. A lot of women assume that if a man wants physical intimacy, then he must also be building emotional attachment through it. But desire and attachment are not always the same thing. Pleasure is not always bonding. A man can enjoy the moment, want the closeness, chase the excitement, and still not come out of it feeling emotionally fused in the way you hoped. For many avoidant men, intimacy can feel more like a strong hit of relief, stimulation, or escape than a deep emotional merge. That does not mean the experience is fake. It means the meaning of the experience may be completely different on his side. For you, it may feel like a doorway into love. For him, it may feel like a moment of aliveness that does not automatically become emotional surrender. This is why some women say everything felt amazing, so why did he pull away right after? Because good feelings in the moment do not always create lasting emotional closeness in someone whose system is wired to protect independence. He may genuinely enjoy you. He may genuinely want you. He may even feel care. But if the experience stays at the level of excitement alone, it does not necessarily build the deep partner bond you are craving. And that is the hard truth many people never say clearly. This next point is where things shift, because there is a different kind of bond many men respond to far more strongly. And once you understand it, you stop trying to force closeness through softness alone. A lot of men, especially avoidant men, bond more deeply when they feel they are sharing a mission, solving something together, or moving through an experience as a team. That is the key. Not just feeling pleasure with you, but feeling partnership with you. Not just receiving affection from you, but building something beside you. There is a different emotional response that wakes up when a man feels, we are in this together, we figured this out together, we handled this as one unit. That is very different from simply being the receiver of love or attention. It is the difference between being served an experience and helping create one, between being admired and feeling joined, between being wanted and feeling chosen as a partner. This is why some men can spend time with a woman, enjoy everything about her, and still keep emotional distance, yet grow deeply attached when they feel true teamwork. When he starts to feel that you are not just there to consume the moment or evaluate him, but to build a shared moment with him, something changes. He relaxes differently. He stays present differently. He begins to feel less like he is performing and more like he is participating. And participation creates investment. That is why this matters so much. If he only links you to excitement, he may return when he wants the feeling. But if he links you to partnership, you begin to represent safety, alliance, and emotional relevance. And once that happens, the connection can start moving to a very different level. Keep listening, because the smallest shift in energy can make the biggest difference here. What does that look like in real life? It means intimacy stops feeling like something being done to impress, please, or prove. It starts feeling like something you are discovering together. That shift sounds small, but it changes everything. Instead of moving through the moment like there is a script to follow, the energy becomes more alive, more shared, more curious. Instead of trying to create the perfect mood and hoping he opens up after, you create a sense that both of you are inside the same experience, shaping it together in real time. That kind of energy pulls him out of his head. It interrupts the silent performance pressure many avoidant men carry. It lowers the feeling that he has to get everything right or protect himself from being fully seen. He starts experiencing you less as an emotional demand and more as an ally. That matters more than most women realize, because when a man feels he is being measured, he becomes guarded. When he feels he is being joined, he becomes more present. And presence is the doorway to real bonding. This is not about acting overly casual or shutting down your own feelings. It is about changing the emotional architecture of the moment. Less pressure, more play. Less hidden expectation, more shared discovery. Less silently hoping he will finally become vulnerable after. More creating the kind of dynamic where vulnerability can happen without being forced. If that sounds simple, good. It should sound simple. The strongest shifts are often simple. But do not underestimate them. A simple change in tone can do what years of overthinking never could. This is also why the women who connect most deeply with avoidant men are often not the ones trying hardest to be perfect. They are the ones who know how to be present, responsive, playful, and real. They do not sit there hoping he reads their mind. They do not make the whole experience feel heavy with silent meaning. They bring life into it. They make space for curiosity. They allow things to breathe. They understand that connection grows faster in an atmosphere of aliveness than in an atmosphere of pressure. So instead of freezing in the hope that everything unfolds exactly right, they engage. They react. They explore. They suggest. They laugh. They stay human inside the moment. And that is powerful because it brings him into the moment too. Avoidant men often live in their heads. They monitor. They manage. They pull away inside before they pull away outside. But when the energy becomes interactive and shared, it becomes much harder for him to disappear into distance. He has to stay with you, he has to respond, he has to co-create, and the more he co-creates, the more emotionally linked he can become to the experience. That is when intimacy stops feeling like a private world he enters and exits alone, and starts feeling like a space the two of you built together. That is a massive difference. And if you have ever felt like he is physically there, but emotionally somewhere else, this may be the missing piece that explains why. There is another part of this that almost nobody talks about enough. A lot of avoidant men change right after intimacy, not because they suddenly stopped caring, but because their stress system wakes up once the intensity drops. In the closeness of the moment, they may be present enough to stay connected. But afterward, when things get quiet and emotionally open, a strange distance can move in. He may go blank. He may seem distracted. He may look like he is somewhere else entirely. You feel the silence and think it means rejection. Sometimes it means internal overload. Sometimes the very closeness that felt good a minute ago now triggers the fear of dependence, expectation, or loss of control. So he shifts away to regulate himself, even if he cannot explain why. This is one reason post-intimacy behavior can feel so confusing. You expect the afterglow to deepen the bond. He may experience the afterglow as the exact point where emotional exposure becomes too visible. That does not mean you should accept cold behavior without standards. It does mean you should understand the pattern before making every moment about your worth. Because when you understand the pattern, you stop chasing clarity from a shut-down nervous system. You stop demanding deep emotional conversation from someone whose body is in retreat. And that alone can change the outcome. Because the more you panic in that moment, the more pressure he feels. The more pressure he feels, the more distance he needs. And suddenly both people are trapped in a cycle neither one fully understands. If this part hits home, stay with me. Because the next shift is one of the most practical of all. One of the strongest ways to change the emotional tone is to stop treating communication as something that only happens after intimacy. For many avoidant men, connection grows more through what is shared during the experience than through what is discussed after it. That means presence matters in real time. Voice matters. Lightness matters. Feedback matters. Not as performance, but as participation. Think about any strong team dynamic in life. People do not wait until the end to finally engage. They check in during the process. They respond, they adjust, they encourage, they react to each other. That same principle changes intimate connection too. A few words at the right moment can make him feel less alone inside the experience. A little curiosity can pull him out of self-monitoring and into actual contact. A playful question, a soft observation, a real reaction, a shared laugh. Those things do more than fill silence. They create partnership. They remind him that this is not a test he has to pass alone. It is a space you are both inside together. And when that happens, his body often softens in ways long emotional talks could not create. This is why silence is not always golden here. Silence can leave him inside performance mode. Shared communication can bring him into presence. And presence, again, is where the bond begins to form. Not in a dramatic speech, not in a perfectly choreographed moment, in the simple feeling that you are with him, not watching him. And yes, that difference is everything. A lot of women hold back during intimacy because they think being too expressive, too curious, or too interactive will ruin the mood. They think serious equals deep. They think silence equals passion. They think if they pause, laugh, or ask for something, they will break the spell. But with an avoidant man, that so-called spell can be the exact thing keeping him in his head. He may stay quiet, but that quiet does not always mean he is deeply connected. Sometimes it means he is managing tension, monitoring himself, or hiding behind a role. The more alive and mutual the energy becomes, the more space there is for him to step out of the role and into the relationship. That is why disruption in the right dose can actually help. A pause can help, a smile can help, a change in rhythm can help, a playful moment can help. Not because you are trying to perform some trick, but because you are turning the experience into something shared rather than something silently acted out. This is where a lot of bonding gets lost. Women wait for emotional proof afterward while missing the chance to build emotional participation during. And once you see that, You start approaching closeness very differently. You stop wondering how to be more perfect. You start asking how to be more connected in real time. You stop trying to earn vulnerability through silence and softness alone. You start creating the kind of space where real openness can actually happen. That is a much stronger move. And the women who understand this often stop feeling so confused because they are no longer hoping a passive experience will somehow create active emotional bonding. Now, let me make this even clearer. An avoidant man often does not need more intensity from you. He needs less pressure and more partnership. He does not always need bigger emotion. He often needs safer emotion. He does not need to feel that intimacy automatically comes with invisible demands he has to meet afterward. He needs to feel that connection with you can be alive, grounded, and mutual without swallowing him whole. That is the secret so many people miss. If closeness feels like surrendering his freedom, he will resist it. If closeness feels like joining a trusted teammate, he may move toward it much more naturally. This is why women sometimes get better results when they stop trying to use intimacy as proof of where the relationship stands. The moment intimacy becomes a hidden test, he feels the weight of it. Even if you never say it out loud, he feels it. He senses the expectation that this should mean more now, that he should act different now, that he should open up now. And once he senses that pressure, the instinct to retreat gets stronger. But when the moment feels shared rather than loaded, when it feels exploratory rather than demanding, when it feels like the two of you are building something rather than stepping into a trap of expectation, his system often responds with more openness. Not overnight, not magically, but more honestly. And honest openness is worth more than forced closeness every single time. Stay with me because the part most women are not prepared for comes after this shift begins to work. Because once an avoidant man really starts to bond, you often begin to see more of the truth, not less. Many women imagine that once they finally crack the code, the rest becomes easy. They think the reward for understanding him will be smooth closeness, constant warmth, and simple answers. But real connection does not only bring affection, it brings honesty, it brings reality, it brings the parts of him he usually keeps guarded. And that can feel surprising, sometimes even uncomfortable. Because when a man begins to trust you more, he may reveal fears, habits, thought patterns, and emotional contradictions that are hard to hear. He may show you how often he pulls back when he feels too seen. He may admit that he wants closeness and fears it at the same time. He may reveal that he disappears not because he feels nothing, but because feeling too much scares him. He may show you sides of male psychology you were never taught to understand clearly. And this is where maturity matters, because the goal is not just to get him attached. The goal is to understand what attachment actually looks like in a man who has spent years protecting himself from need. Sometimes it looks messy before it looks stable. Sometimes it looks honest before it looks smooth. Sometimes it looks like 2 steps forward and 1 step back. That does not excuse bad behavior, but it does explain why real progress can feel less glamorous than fantasy. The truth is, once the bond becomes real, the real education begins. And if you are not ready for that truth, you can still end up confused even after the connection grows stronger. That is why this conversation matters beyond just intimacy. What is happening in those close moments often mirrors the whole relationship. If he only knows how to come alive through excitement but not through teamwork, the bond will stay fragile. If he only moves toward you when things are light, and then retreats the second emotional reality appears, the connection will stay unstable. But if he begins to experience you as someone safe to build with, someone he can discover with, someone who does not trap him with hidden pressure yet also does not abandon herself, then the relationship has a real chance to deepen. Notice that last part, because it matters. This is not about becoming endlessly understanding while your own needs disappear. It is not about twisting yourself into some cool, undemanding fantasy just to keep him close. Real partnership requires both truth and safety. It requires warmth without pressure and standards without panic. It requires you to stop personalizing every retreat while also staying honest about what kind of connection you actually want. That balance is what changes everything. Because when you stop reacting from fear, you become far more powerful in the dynamic. You can see clearly. You can read the moment better. You can decide whether he is simply slow to bond or fundamentally unavailable. And those are not the same thing. A man can be avoidant and still capable of growth, but growth only becomes visible when the dynamic itself starts changing. And one of the strongest places to see that change is in how he responds to shared closeness over time. So, if you have been trying to reach an avoidant man by giving more of your heart, more softness, more patience, more intense closeness, and getting little back, do not assume the answer is to give even more of the same. Sometimes the answer is to shift the entire frame, make the moment lighter, make it more shared, bring him into the experience instead of waiting for him to translate it afterward. Let the energy breathe. Let it be mutual. Let it feel like the two of you are discovering something, not silently carrying out a script. That is often where the wall begins to crack, not because you forced it down, but because he stopped feeling like closeness was something that would corner him. And when that happens, you may notice small but important changes. He stays present longer. He gets less distant after. He talks a little more naturally. He feels less like a mystery you have to chase and more like a man slowly meeting you in the middle. Those small changes matter. Do not miss them. Because lasting connection is rarely built in one dramatic breakthrough. It is built in repeated moments where safety and partnership replace pressure and confusion. And if you have ever wondered what avoidant men crave during intimacy, but struggle to say out loud, the answer is often simpler than people think. They crave closeness that does not feel like capture. They crave connection that feels shared, not demanded. They crave the kind of experience where they do not have to choose between contact and control. And once you understand that, you stop guessing in the dark. You start seeing the pattern. And when you see the pattern, you finally know what to do with it.